Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the CKC channel. I'm your host, Fide Master Calvin Klaassen, and yes, welcome to another episode of Reflections. This is season 4, of course, and yes, this evening we have a special edition where we will not be interviewing anyone in particular, but we will be going into, I would say, one of the catalysts of this whole show, which is Dr. Boa's library. And yeah, I think we will be thoroughly entertained this evening. So feel free to ask your questions still. And yeah, I'll also be asking some of my own questions. But let's swing over to Dr. Boa over here. Hi and welcome, Dr. Boa.
Yes, good evening, Calvin, and good evening to the viewers. Great being here, Calvin. Lovely evening in Cape Town here. So looking forward to the show tonight.
Fantastic. Yes. So we are currently now still in our usual setup where we interview people, where I'm sitting in the in the other person's spot. But soon we'll be just expanding everything, and then we'll allow Dr. Boa to actually show us some of his books. Tell me, Dr. Boa. So how does one start a chess book library? How do you go about it, and when did you start with yours?
Now, thanks, Calvin, for the question. So, it was many, many moons ago, and there are some of the viewers that may not even remember descriptive notation. But I can tell you that my first books that I ever studied were descriptive notation books. They were passed on to me by other chess players, players like Yanni Safir, Samuel Gertzer, Milroy Rogers, Ivan Peterson. They in turn, a lot of the players in Port Elizabeth back in the day gave me these books to read. And I was quite fascinated at the time with these books. And then later on, a friend of mine, Claude van Heerden, started to work at West End Library. And then I discovered that West End Library has got algebraic books also. So I realized that at some stage, descriptive went over to algebraic. But nonetheless, there are some lovely books in descriptive notation, which we will talk about. And I started in obviously I couldn't afford books at that stage, but because I was still a youngster at high school. But our chess teacher at school, Mr. John Ricci, he started making photocopies of important books like the BCO. My very first Batsford chess opening book was a photocopy of the BCO. And I mean, I still have snippets of the book. I don't have the whole book because I, of course, bought the original book later on. But those were important books. Even the Scheveningen Sicilian and the Benko Gambit, all these books were photocopied books at the start. And that's how I started my library with photocopied books. When I got to Cape Town in 1991 to do my studies at UWC, the photocopies per page was 10 cents. So I used to go to all the libraries in Cape Town, and there are many, many libraries in Cape Town, and used to get their chess books and make photocopies of it at 10 cents a page at that stage. So I used to look and say, I don't want too thick a book because then I can't make a photocopy of it. But that is how you start, very small. And of course, later on, I started to expand, Calvin, with purchasing of original books that I can own and enjoy over time.
Fantastic. Sounds interesting. And yeah, I think everybody should have some small collection if they're a chess player. Doesn't matter in what shape or form, but it's interesting to say the least. But so you say 10 cent a copy, so that means probably what a variation will be about 5 rand or so for variation or so. I don't know about the opening as well.
Yes, it's like it's five to 10 rand, 5 to 10 rand to make a photocopied book.
Yes.
And what is interesting, Calvin, is that some of the books are actually still priceless because I recently gave a book to a youngster, Best Games of Portage, that I photocopied. Now, that's a classic. It won't go out of fashion, because Lajos Sportic was the leading Hungarian player for many, many years. And in fact, if I'm correct, he played about 19 Olympiads consecutively from 1960 odd to 1996 in Armenia, which was sort of his last Olympiad. But interestingly, those books are still user friendly because nicely bound, and of course we used to just put them together and pass it down from person to person so that people can enjoy it. So I think many of those books started now. Just to tell you, Calvin and the viewers, Cape Town Library in the 90s was fantastic with chess books. Many people will know that you have games and recreation under the library code 794 to 796. So whenever I walk into a library, I used to ask the librarian, where's 794 to 796? Then you know it's table tennis, board games, and chess, and you'll find your chess books around there. And that's what I used to do. So in Cape Town, I used to go to Cape Town Library. Then I used to go to Goodwood Library because Goodwood Library had an subscription to the US Chess Life. Now, that was very interesting because then you could follow the American chess via the magazines. And then, of course, Sea Point Library in Cape Town had new in chess subscriptions. So that was also very good. And then you also had other libraries that had the English chess magazine. And in Port Elizabeth, where I grew up, they had the BCM, very small book, British chess magazine, and that was at the PE library. And through that, I grew to love books in general. And in 1 year, a good chess friend of mine called Leon for Art Arnold, who was at Leonsdale Library, he printed out for me all the chess books that were in Cape Town, and it came out to about 800 chess books across Cape Town's greater libraries here that you could go, whether it's Mitchell's Plain or Belleville or wherever. And I think that that inspired me. But later on, Calvin, when I started working in 1996. I used to buy chess books. At that stage, chess books were 70 Rand, 90 Rand, and so forth. Very, very affordable. So I used to think nothing of buying 5 at a time. And then nowadays, of course, chess books have gone to 300, 400, 500 Rand because they are imported. And that makes it very, very expensive for the average player. So I've bought since about 94, 95. I have in my personal library over 1,500 books or magazines that I've catalogued. So many, many chess players that have visited my home don't want to leave my library. I had one chess player that visited me from one of the African countries that he stayed with me for a tournament, and then he didn't want to stay in his room. He actually moved his bed up to the library because he wanted to just be engulfed by all these chess books around him. So, I mean, that's how people come to love the chess library.
Yes, I was about to ask you actually what the number is in there. So yeah, quite a formidable number you have over there. And tell me maybe something important that a lot of people want to know, how relevant is books nowadays compared to everybody's moving to the computer age. People can get soft copies of a lot of items. How important are physical books to you?
So for me, Calvin, one of the interesting things is about 3 weeks ago during the January vacation, I went to some second-hand bookstores here in Cape Town just to browse. And amazingly, I found Magnus Carlsen's 60 Memorable Games, a book written by Andy Saltis. Now, there's a big difference when you sit down at your own board with a book open and you can slowly go through the book, read each of the lines. Now, I maintain that there is a difference between having a position on a computer and then flicking through it with your finger there and so forth, or your mouse, and just quickly reading the lines to see what's happening. So for me, the importance of having a book is the ability to be able to go back to the book. Some books are also a reference book. When players come to me that want to improve, and sometimes a player may be 1900 and he would ask me, so how can I improve to go further? I would ask him, have you ever read Zurich 1953? And if the player hadn't, if he's a decent player, I would say, take my copy and bring it back to me after 1 year. Don't bring it back after 2 months, 1 year, because that book of Bronstein, 210 games, lovely annotations. You learn your positional chess. Just like people would tell you, you must read my system. Now, in the same way, I would say, did you read that or did you do that? So now, whether somebody would have the tenacity to go through it on his or her computer, I don't know. But I maintain that when you have a new book, the pages, as you go through it and you make new discoveries, you actually take the time to read a book. I don't know of many people that and I'm friends with hundreds of chess players that have finished an entire ebook on chess on their computer. They will use it as reference material. And I know one guy who told me that he's got over 5,000 titles on his computer, but he hasn't read them. So I'm not sure what that means, but I can vouch for most of my books here. I have probably read at least once, and those that are new that I have bought, I go through at my own pace and my own time because there's no reason to. But I think, Calvin, books still important in a developmental society like we are. Many players may not have laptops, and books still provide sustenance for player. That discovery when you find knight d5 in a Sicilian, that when you have the King's Indian in front of you and all of a sudden you see knight g3, or all of a sudden you see somebody describing a Rubinstein's queen b8 to queen a7 to b6 to b4. That maneuver you can't just find on a computer. You got to go through it. If you look at Rotlevy versus Rubinstein, that brilliant, the rook takes c3 and all of those, rook d2, that if you experience that and you show others on the board, there's a big difference when you have that book. So for me, I still maintain that books are important. In Africa, books are important, and everywhere you still have people having a book that you can read on the train, read on the plane. Anybody, when you go, you always see people sitting with books, and that for me is still important. So, Calvin, I'm a book guy. I don't shy away from ebooks. I do have ebooks, but they're not the same.
Yes, no, I fully agree over there. I've done both, and I've also experienced with the viewers. I've experienced Dr. Bauer's library as well. It is definitely much more exciting to have a physical book in your hands. So yeah, usually if you take it home, you immediately want to go through it compared to a soft copy book. So yeah, I think it's still quite relevant and quite important to have physical books around. Good evening to Early B as well. Welcome to the show. And yes, so talking about books. In fact, early on today, I just checked on YouTube. There's this Grand Prix still going on. I think it's the finals between the Nakamura and the Aronian. But somewhere they had a question. I think it was a question to Aronian and Nakamura. They asked him about the top 3 important books or something like this. And perhaps I'd like to ask you the same question on 2 levels. So if you want to start a collection, you have to start somewhere. So with your book 1, and let's say you can buy 3 books. What 3 books would you recommend to the beginner, and what 3 books would you recommend to the advanced player?
Calvin, nowadays that's a very difficult question because there are so many decent beginner books out there that has come through the last 100 years. Some of the viewers and some of the persons that we interviewed will tell you, a number of them, of the older players, will tell you about a guy called Fred Reinfeldt. And what Fred Reinfeldt was, an American guy, him and another American guy called Irving Chernev. They wrote books that were based at club level, some beginner level, and those books I actually found very useful in the way that they explain things. Now, those things are also important to actually go through. So for me, I would think that if you can find some reprints of Chernev or Reinfeldt, if you're the ranked beginner, that would just be good. But of course, there are many excellent beginner books that are out there. In the 2016 Azerbaijan Olympiad, I bought an interesting book which was recommended to me by a friend. And it's called Journey into the Chess Kingdom, which is actually a beginner book in Russia But if you listen to Kostyanyuk, if you listen to Kalifman and all the other grandmasters, then they will tell you that in Russia, that is considered the first beginner's book that a beginner or a decent beginner should go through. So Journey into the Chess Kingdom, and I've got a copy here, and they say that it basically when it got reprinted in the algebraic notation, it sold over 1 million copies immediately in Russia. So that Journey into the Chess Kingdom, very interesting for me. I read it because I wanted to see the explanations. So I would actually give that one a go as well. And then of course, you had many books by Keen and others that were also learning to play and learning to play better. I enjoyed Leonard Barden's books. Leonard Barden was a top English player back in the day in the 70s, but then he started writing and he didn't really continue to go on to GM status. But the point about Leonard Barden's books was also very interesting, how he explains things. So I think when we go on the tour of the library, we could actually see the books behind me, one or two of those beginner books. But but nowadays there's I nearly want to say a volume of beginner books that are all decent. But that Journey into the Chess Kingdom would be something that I would recommend very strongly, Calvin.
Okay, fantastic. So
What,
maybe, you know
what
what?
is the second
The
question?
second question was for advanced player. You could also maybe just say it doesn't necessarily have to be completely structured. Maybe just your top three that you would recommend, or your top three favorite books. We asked this to everybody on the show, so maybe you can give your top three books.
Yeah. So Calvin, I've been thinking the whole day about how to answer that question because I knew you were going to ask it. You see, about my top three books, and I've discovered I don't have a top three because I love all these different books. When I tell you, for instance, The Life and Games of Tal, I mean that was one of my first books that I ever studied back in the day. And he would place one piece on pre, and then you think he's going to protect it, then he puts a second piece on pre, and the annotation would be my opponent can only capture one at a time. That I so much enjoyed that when I visited London in 2008 and I found the English the new reprinted version in my Malcolm Payne's store there at the London Chess Center, I had to buy that, The Life and Games of Mikhail Tal. So for me, that is something from the enjoyable angle, from the sacrifices. I mean, that for me is a favorite and a classic as well. Another book that I enjoyed going through, which is also from that era, is actually 60 Memorable Games from Fischer. Now, it was one of my first books, but recently I did a book by Andy Salters called Fischer Discovered. Yeah. And there were still new books, new games that Salters had analyzed. But I would think that 60 Memorable Games is also a classic. Now, Calvin, it's so difficult for me to tell you. Kasparov's predecessors is a must. The study of the games of Alekhine is just fantastic with the concepts. And then you also find, I later on discovered that I enjoyed Tigran Petrosian's games. Now there was a guy in England, P.H. Clark. P.H. Clark used to translate the Russian books into English, and those games and those ones were so fantastic. I mean, I enjoyed whether it was the best games of Smyslov, whether it's the best games of Alekhine, or any of the other. I mean, Botvinnik wrote a book called Achieving the Aim. Very little games in this book of Achieving the Aim, but actually he describes his journey from where he was a youngster to becoming world champion. So difficult one to call. Obviously, Dvoretsky's books are all here behind me. My system is also here in algebraic and descriptive. And then, of course, John Nunn's books are just fantastic to conceptualize when you go through them. So quite a few books but I think the Tal one and the Fischer one. And then I think if I look at some of my other books here that I've enjoyed going over the years, I think there would be quite a few for that top three as well. But Alekhine, his best games would probably win. I've got a couple of them where I've got my best games, but Alekhine would win for me because I grew up with Alekhine's games and the discussion of it. So yeah, Alekhine, Tal, and Fischer would be my choices, Calvin, for the enjoyment of it. Obviously, for for instructional value, everybody will tell you about my system and all the other things. But I think that one is, those are my 3 favorites. Let's put it that way. Calvin, shall we go on to a journey into the library?
Yes, no,
Before we take questions, or we first want to take questions?
Well, at the moment, there's no questions, so I would urge the viewers to throw in your questions straight away, so we can go straight away to the library, and you can show us a bit more of that. There seems to be a bit of a lag on Zoom, though. Are you still with us, Linda? Okay.
Yes. I'm here.
Okay, I can
All
hear.
right, so
I can hear you, but your
we'll
video is a
start.
bit laggy. Okay, let's continue. Let's try to view everything.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll try to get. Okay, we're gonna start here in the corner. Let's see if we can just get through here.
Okay, so see the books on the shelves.
Okay, so I'm gonna start at the corner. Yeah, see the corner.
Yeah, we see the corner.
Yes.
Still lagging quite a bit, though.
So here you'll see I've got, yes, we've got folder. This is, can you see it now, Calvin?
No, your video is kind of frozen at the moment. Okay, it's slowly getting back, but it's really laggy. So okay, there I can see it at the moment. Okay.
Maybe we missed it over there. Okay. So I'll talk, and then if the video comes back, we will still be looking at the books. So Calvin, a few years ago, I found Laszlo Polgar, the Polgar's dad, and all his books that he's written, which is fantastic in terms of puzzles and endings and all sorts of things. And I just had to buy it. And I mean, they were about like 200 Rand each at the time. But these books have proved pivotal for educational, instructional value as well. So I'm not sure, Calvin, if you're familiar with the Polgar books.
Yes, those big ones. I think it's a lot of tactics, a lot of yeah. I think it's those puzzles, right? It's a whole lot of them, but they are good.
Yes, those are the ones.
Yeah. No. Welcome to everyone in the chat. By the way,
what I've done here in the top shelf. So I've tried to add. Thanks, Calvin. I've done here is I've organized some of this pile in terms of the openings, and around about here I've got about 13 King's Indian books. So I'm a great King's Indian fan. Many players know that I'm a proponent of it. I play it, I enjoy it, and I'm happy to take on theoretical battles once I've prepared for a tournament. And so over the years I've bought King's Indian books, so that when I go overseas again, hopefully when this coronavirus thing ends, I will get some of the new King's Indian books there wherever we are, but 13 King's Indian books just to help us get that little knight G6 and G4 in even quicker in that one. And then as we go next to that, you'll see that I've got a number of Dovretzky books.
Okay, so at the moment,
the School of Chess Excellence, Dovretzky's Chess Tactics, Chess Training, opening.
Yeah, Leonard, we can't see anything at the moment. It's your video is completely frozen, so I don't know if it's the internet that's a bit worse when you got up or something.
Okay, fine. Okay, let's do this. Can you see it now?
Okay, we can still see you, but now it's still frozen. I don't know if it's the connection or something, but yeah, wait. Yeah, the video footage is very laggy and blurry. So yeah, but let's make do with what we have. Let's see what we can do. So okay. So you say you
we've got a Dovretzky section.
Yeah.
So what I've done is with the Dovretzky section is that I've actually bought some of his School of Chess Excellence as well as the School of Future Champions, and all of those books, Attack and Defense, Sequence of Chess Tactics. So I found in the 90s, Dovretzky very important. If you're a chess coach, If you're a serious player, you'll actually try to get the Dovetsky books and go through them. So for me, things like secret technique for the tournament player, secrets of chess training, all of those things are very, very important. And I still use them when I prepare for big tournaments, whether it be a SA Open or other tournaments that I prefer to play. So those are the type of books that if you can get them, get the Dovetsky books, get the series, and you keep it because they're always great reference books as well. You don't need to study them all finish at once. You can actually go through them. Calvin, in this shelf, we'll just go down a bit. We'll just quickly just go on these ones. These are just the opening shelves that I have. So I'm busy organizing them into Sicilians, into the Queen's Gambits, whatever openings there are. The books that I bought, the openings, these are the ones that I feel that as a chess player and as a coach, these are the ones that I used to coach quite a lot. And I feel that the opening books are always important. Calvin, any questions or comments on the opening books? Some of them are older, some of them are new, of course.
Yeah, we've got a few comments here. Guy saying welcome. Sean saying hi. Cognitive Discord also saying hi. Charles Eigap also saying good evening. Charles is saying Dr. Boa even plays the Alekine defense. And he says, tell us your secrets to build up such a huge library. Any tips on how to start or how to do it?
I think the key thing for us, Calvin, is that you've got to start small by just buying 1 or 2 books at a time. And I've sort of told myself, if I buy 2 or 3 books over a month, that's enough. You don't need to buy more books. And as you go through life, I've been playing for over 35 years. You build up your library just by purchasing when you get to tournaments. So when you travel overseas or you travel to big chess centers like Johannesburg or Pretoria or Cape Town or Durban, wherever there is a chess seller, you must take some extra money with you because you may not find that book again because books are very scarce to come by. So thanks for the question, Charles. And yes, I still play the Alekine as well.
Yes, indeed. Yes, we have something here from Sean as well that came in. Sean says, no questions, even though we are urging the viewers for questions. No questions for you, Dr. Boa. Just enjoying the way you describe your journey through your library. Such passion. It sounds as if you have read more books than I have had coffee cups. Lovely. You are a rare gem in the chess world. Keep going. So thanks for the comment, Sean. But yes, no further questions, Lyndon.
No problem. Thank you very much, Sean. So I'm just going to show you the section next to it. So these are some of the older books that I have in the collection. Calvin, we'll just show you the older books. I won't describe each one of them, but as we look at them and the camera shows the books, I find that some of the older books are actually still quite nice in terms of what they can offer. And that is where, when we talk about the reflections, then the reflections you can get from reading some of these old chess masterpieces. So for me, these books, very, very important. And I just want to pause here by these endgame books for the moment. So Calvin, you may be familiar with all the Averbach series, Bishop Endings, Queen Pawn, Rook and Minor, and I've got all of these endings of Averbach. Nice. And Averbach, of course, turned 100 a week ago, oldest living grandmaster.
Yes.
And
by the way, I saw Nakamura's. I saw one of Nakamura's top 3, by the way, over there in your collection. Dvoretzky's endgame manual. It's there.
Yes. Yes,
so have to point it out.
That's the one that it has to be there. It has to be there. Dvoretzky's endgame one is such a classic. You've got to have it in your collection.
Yeah.
So these are some of the older ones and the ones that you can use as a coach. And of course, chess players find it difficult to study those rook endings and the queen endings, but they are the ones that bring you that difference of a half a point or a point when you need to know how to save a game or how to win a game. Always important.
Yes.
Thanks. Let's just go to the side.
I've got a question here, Lyndon. You can tackle it after what you want to show us. So many, like you said, we've got the Talc collections and the Alekine and so forth and Petrosians. all these compilation of games. So, do you have anything on the current world champion, Magnus Carlsen?
So I've got two actually on Carlson. So let me just show you my two that I have. So this is Wonder Boy.
Aha.
This book given to me by Achterstein when Simon Achterstein visited Cape Town in
Nice.
2005. He brought this and he gave that one. And then my second Carlson book is this one that I'm busy with at the moment. 60 memorable games. So these are the two books. Yeah, there hasn't been many books of Carlson, but I'm hoping that when I go overseas later this year, that I'll be able to get some of Carlson's other books, because there have been books written about his world championship matches and so forth. So looking forward to that.
Fantastic.
Calvin and the viewers, I just want to show you this. This is sort of the newer collection. So on this side, this row on top here is literally dedicated to Kasparov. So
Aha.
Kasparov would have the predecessors. You'll see there's another blue one, which is 73 to 85, also of Kasparov. Then, of course, some of his books. Winter is Coming, which is, of course, Game of Thrones theme.
Nice.
Gary Kasparov. Then The Test of Time, Child of Change. These are also very important books because they are little known books. But if you go through them, Kasparov deals with his emotions as he played those world championships at that particular time. So all of these books relate to Kasparov. And of course, you also know the famous fighting chess books of Kasparov, which is 99, and then also these ones. So fighting chess, this was one of his the first one that I sort of had, that fighting chess one. And then later on, Tivo Carelli, who's a friend of mine from Budapest, he wrote these ones. And
Nice.
and these also became classics as well. But so this row on top here is literally dedicated to Kasparov.
Brilliant.
On that.
Brilliant. Dr. Bo, we've got one or two more things in the chat box here, and then yeah, we can continue with that one if you don't mind. So yes, we've got Cognitive saying over here, Dr. Boa, have you read all the books in your library? If not, how many must you still read? Yeah.
So I would have probably read close to about 80% of the books myself in the book, and later on, if I see that I can come back to it, if it's a reference book, then I don't need to finish the book in its entirety. Because in my work, I travel a lot, I can take the books with me at any time. But when a book is about a top player like Kasparov, then I would have gone through the book from cover to cover, because you want to learn. And at various stages, I've been a top 10 player in South Africa, so I had to go through the books in order to be able to compete at SA Close level and SA Open level as well. So yes, I think I would probably have gone through enough of my books in the library, and I would know where to find the answers. That is more important than remembering everything, is to know where to find the answers, because sometimes you need to assist a player in a particular area of the game. Maybe they don't know how to create a second flank, and then you need to tell them, this is what you do. If there's an attack on the flank, you go into the center. If you need to create a second weakness in the end game, you need to study this, or you need to understand the superfluous piece, the knight on d5 and the knight on c3, both want to be there. So you need to be able to refer them to the correct ones, which books to read in order to do that.
Yes, fantastic on that one. And then Kenny is also saying, good evening, welcome Kenny. Dr. Queenie says, what is your technique or system of going through a book in such a way that you remember the content and can use the ideas? Interesting question.
So for me, there's a couple of I try to play through a book and a game slowly. So it would take me a month to read through an entire book where there's games. So, but what is important is I spend time playing the moves on the board, my own board. I've got wooden pieces and a wooden board. And when I read the game, I play through it, I pause where they give me the descriptive notation, where they actually explain the things to me, to say the reason why he's doing A is because he wants to do B, and this is where the rook belongs on F8, because let's talk King's Indian, the push to F5 to F4 needs to be supported by the rook, and then a rook F7 to D7. So once I get that explanation, I then begin to understand it. I go through the book, and later on my computer, I can play through recent games of grandmasters in that particular opening. But for me, I try to absorb the idea. I absorb the idea, because when you get to a position in chess, if you understand the ideas, then the moves will come to you. But you've got to absorb the idea first. That is the important one. And I think that's something that I've specialized in over the years, to understand ideas, not necessarily every variation. I still believe calculation is still a weakness in my armor, but my understanding is stronger than my calculating ability, which is fine. That's my level, and that's what I enjoy. But thank you for the question, Dr. Queenie.
Fantastic question. Thanks, Dr. Queenie. And yes, of course, everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses. So yeah, I fully agree with that one, Dr. Boa. So no further questions. Kenny Wallenberg saying, though, that fighting chess by Kasparov, highly recommended, his favorite, of course. So thanks for the comments, everyone, and the questions. Please feel free to throw in more questions, but over to you, Leonard. What else are we looking at?
Thanks. So I just want to come to the second row, just to show you some of the things in the second row. So some of the things, this is our Karpov section again. And Karpov was a favorite, of course, of many players. Tibor Kareli wrote these two fantastic books, Karpov Strategic Wins and his Endgames. I've played through them. I'm halfway with both of them, because they, of course, heavy books, but very enjoyable. Other Karpov books, very important. Kenny Solomon will tell you how Karpov influenced his play, and you can even see that in Kenny's games today as well. The other books in these collections belong to world champions and other top players, and I believe that when you can, you should try to study top chess players. So in this collection, for instance, just to tell you, Calvin, obviously Steinitz is here, Korshner is here, Paul Keres is here, Bronstein is here. Here's also Leko is here. I've got Tal's best games, Shirov Fire on the board that everybody knows, Paul Morphy, Capablanca, Reshevsky is also here, Grigoric and his games is here. Of course, Alekine is here. Portage is here, and then of course you have Larry Christensen, you have Bronstein with that 1953 book, some of the Soviet chess. Here's a book by Blackburn's best games. So various top grandmasters and world players, world standard players that you need to collect. And remember, sometimes you may think the book is worth 30 Rand or 40 Rand, but once you go into the games, then you find the value of it. Let's quickly look at this last section before we look at one of. So this is some of my newer books. This is some of my newer books that we have. Okay. So you'll see this one here is dedicated to Fischer. So that is dedicated to Fischer, and you'll see there the games of Robert J. Fischer. That's all his known games at the time. And then you have How to Beat Bobby Fischer, which was all his lost games. And as you go through it, so the Fischer collection is quite something, because whenever I try to find books on Fischer, then I normally purchase them. And then what I've been enjoying is the Gambit books by the publishers. So you find a lot of Gambit books, just to show everybody. This is Maurice Ashley, Most Valuable Skills in Chess. Then, of course, you've got Chess for Zebras. That was written by Jonathan Rowson, Grandmaster from Scotland, British champion on a number of occasions. And then readers may not be familiar with John Watson, but John Watson has written some fantastic positional books, and I've quite enjoyed them. So if you ever can get these Watson books, do get them. Another highly recommended series is, in fact, the R-God series. This one is Technical Chess. Then that is Chess Calculation. Then you have Excelling at Chess. And then, of course, you have Excelling at Positional Chess. So R-God has also written a number of books that has become important for players to actually read through. And then one of the things that I'm very happy to have is, of course, Ludwig Parkman. Ludwig Parkman, I've got his three of his ones here, opening, middle, and the endings. And Ludwig Parkman is, of course, Walter Kobese attended the Ludwig Parkman School of Chess in Germany back in the 80s. And Parkman was a very famous grandmaster from the Czech Republic before he moved over to Germany. In the second row is also a lot of new books. So you'll see I've bought books at the Olympiads. I've bought books of Grivas. There's John Nunn. There's various other John Nunn books. These are some of my own books that I've put in my library as
I was
well.
about to ask, yes, is there a reflection corner at least over there?
Yes, no, in fact, there's reflections on that one, and there's book 4, and there's book 2.
Nice.
So they've also found pride of place in the library. And Calvin, for me, the library is somewhere that you must come to relax. And I want to show you one picture that I've put in the library for viewers. March 2012, playing against Gary Kasparov in
Nice
Cape Town.
one. There we go. Gary in full analysis mode over there.
Full analysis mode there. He and I are busy engaging. Before, of course, I got defeated in less than 25 moves. Like Kasparov. But of course, that's a lovely memory as well. So Calvin, that is a journey through part of my library. It's I think that any chess player must build up his or her library over time. And sometimes I don't buy a lot of opening books anymore, because you can get your opening theory from any internet publication, anywhere where they have these things. And of course, if you got your chess base and your first up to date, you're sort of okay in that regard. So for me, I nowadays buy books that I find enjoyable, where I can still go through, and sometimes I sit with a glass of wine and I play through some of these fantastic games. I've got a book here, the Mammoth Book of Chess. And this Mammoth Book of Chess is a fantastic one to actually show viewers, because it has literally the latest games and also oldish games as well. Just on your left there. Yeah, on your left. Yeah, that one. Just give it 10 seconds. So Calvin, just to show you this one. That is the world's greatest chess games. And nice. What I enjoyed, this book has got 810 pages.
Okay. That's a
810 pages.
Good 2 to 3 months, you say.
No, this is going to take me the whole year. This is the whole year. So, but what is nice is, of course, the older games you all have seen already. Reti versus Capablanca, New York, 1924. You've seen a lot of those games. But the latest one, where Dingley Ren or this Grandmaster beats this one in the sacrifice, those things are all new in terms of the analysis. We would have seen them on Chess Base. But of course, the analysis where the guy plays rook takes f7, and then you wonder, is there going to be a mate? And then the opponent gets mated there on g4, h5, or wherever it is. So Calvin, I would venture to say that any chess player worth his or her salt must still have some chess books that they can use as reference material, also for enjoyment, also for coaching and instruction as well. And if you decide to play a particular opening, whether it be the Karo Khan, whether it be the Queen's Gambit, whatever it is, then buy yourself a book that describes the opening and give some key variations, just so that you have that, because it's very difficult to play an opening from a general book. You need to have some specifics as well. And and what I've done in some of my Alekhine lines, I've actually played sidelines in the main variations, because I was able to go through it in the books. So when Lev Albert wrote the book, the Alekhine for the Tournament Player back in the year, he included sidelines. And then as the sidelines developed, new Alekhine books came in, and I bought them as well. And then, of course, whatever opening you want to play, there's always going to be new theory and new games. So those are the things that I would think, Calvin, for tonight. A chess library, very important to go through and to use, not only to admire, but also to use. So Calvin, that's my input on the chess library, and I'm happy to take some more questions.
Fantastic, wonderful stuff, Lyndon. I think we can still go on for a long time. We've got I think another question or two in the chat here, and I've got one more question from myself as well. But let's see. So Charles Eigap also says, I once went with Dr. Boa to Mr. or Professor Bertie's house. That was the very first time for me to see such a huge library. So Professor Bertie also has a nice library, apparently.
Yes, yes. He also started when Bertie, being an academic, he's one of my mentors in life, and he taught me the value of having books that you can refer to, and um, and he started collecting, of course, very early while I was still a student, making photocopied books. He made sure that he had some nice books that I was able to borrow on occasion. So I think most people, and in Bertie's case, he had the books that he was collecting and he kept it together, and he still has got some nice books that he has. And when I visit him now and again, then we would reminisce over them. But my library has now gone past his library because, of course, he's now specialized in education.
Okay, fantastic. And yeah, who's next? Let's see. It is Dr. Queenie. Dr. Queenie says, what I enjoy about Lyndon's library is that he has a book on literally everything. Most of the time, more than one on a topic. It is great to compare notes of authors. The pictures in some of the older books are priceless. Yeah, guys, I'm squinting here from reading the small lines. But yeah, thanks for the comments, Dr. Queenie. I think Kenny has another question here. Kenny says, how are you finding Magnus 60 memorable games so far? And second question, is it important to annotate our own games? So Kenny has got a double question there for you.
Yes, no, in fact, the interesting thing with this Carlson book is that they start off from the age of about 10. They have Carlson as he was at the age of 10, and then we're getting. I'm now only at game 7, so I'm not long into the book, but so we're getting to the later ones. But I think what is clear for me is that Magnus' style is the one that I'm getting used to. Everybody talks about his style, but I was still trying to define it for myself. And what I'm seeing as I'm with his developmental style is he's not afraid to go for the win and to sit there for the 3 or 4 hours that they were playing junior level and still play out the position. And I think this is perhaps the difference between him and the other super grandmasters, where he is happy to play out the equal position to actually see if it is that equal, and then also to make that small changes, those subtleties and those nuances that will allow him to possibly have chances for a win. And I think that is, I mean, if you looked at his blitz and his rapid now, when they played in Poland, when he should have taken a draw, he played for the win. And that cost him there against that youngster from Uzbekistan that won ultimately. But I think for me, Kenny, thanks for the question. I'm hoping to finish Carlson in the next 2 months or something before the Steinitz Open, and maybe I can use some of the technique from Carlson in the Steinitz Open. So watch for that one.
Yes,
I
and
think
yeah,
the,
no, go
the
ahead. Please
second
go ahead.
question, yeah, the second question about annotate. So I still find it very useful to annotate games, and I actually annotate my own games for my own enjoyment, and also to show some of my friends and my club mates. Sometimes you get to a position in a game that is critical, and you're not sure if you made the correct choice. And what is important is that when you are playing at the top level, whether it be at club level or interprovincial or South African level, some positions tend to repeat themselves. So the first 10 moves of a line, the person on the other side may have seen that you have played it in some tournament or other, because nowadays your games are on lead chess, your games are everywhere. So it does help then for you to go deeper into the position, so that when you analyze, you can then look at what faults there are. Because I've written 4 chess books now recently, Calvin, I had the opportunity to analyze some of my own games, and I picked up some things that I missed. Where you should make a check and then capture a piece with check. Where in my younger days I used to go for the quick win of the piece, not realizing that there would have been a better move in the situation if I'd thought a bit longer. Sometimes you need to just think a bit more. So I think this is something that South African players don't do. I believe what Botvinnik said years ago in the Soviet Union: you should publish your analysis and not be shy to publish your analysis, because if somebody else finds holes in it, fine, then it just means that you're going to improve your own analysis later on. But nowadays, you don't find annotated games of top players very easily. You simply don't. Whereas in the old days, top players, they annotated their games, they made one or two corrections to later on. So I think annotating games, very, very important. But I must come back into my first original comment, Calvin and Kenny. Some top players don't even keep their games. They don't save it on their computers. They don't keep it on their database, which means that your ability to learn from your earlier mistakes is then impeded by your own self creating a ceiling where you can't go forward because you actually haven't analyzed your mistakes. And those things are important for us going forward. You've got to analyze your mistakes. And in the old days before we couldn't do it, many of the top players used to put down the amount of time they thought on a move next to that. You used to see the 10, 5, 2, and that even assisted the player to know when he or she played too fast or too slow. But those are the things, it's just techniques. But Kenny, annotations still important even today. And that is why some games that I've played over the years, I can still remember from memory because of having gone through it continuously in order just to get understanding of the position, because you would not have been able to delve into all the mysteries of a position if you actually haven't analyzed it at home afterwards as well. So thanks for the question.
Yeah, no, thanks for the answer, Dr. Boa. I fully agree with you on that one. So, yes, yeah, so it's just two more comments. Kenny saying, last I visited the Doc's library, it was big, but now it's perhaps the biggest in SA. Any comments on that one? Is yours the biggest? Do you think you're in the top three, or where do you rank if you had to take a guess?
Calvin, in fact, I don't know where I rank because I don't know. There may be players in Pretoria, older players that have been collecting for 50 years already. Some of those guys collected very early, but most of the players that have ever visited my house and my home have commented that it is amongst the biggest in terms of number of chess books that they have seen in one given place over the years. So I don't know where I am, but I probably would say that it would rank in the top three in the country, given the comments that I've heard from players from far field as Johannes Mabusela and Hans Stein and others that have come from afar that stayed by me. And because it's so difficult to find chess books and keep them all together, I've just done that, and in some of the smaller centers around South Africa, there wouldn't be chess bookstores or bookstores selling chess books, at least, whereas here in Cape Town, there are actually a few if you know where to look. And then, of course, sometimes players also wish to sell their collections. But yes, I'm managing it, and now that I'm working full time, I don't hesitate to purchase books if I enjoy them. So thanks, Kenny, for that. Maybe one day we'll have to find out who's still a chess collector somewhere in Gauteng or Durban.
Yes, thanks for that one. And then interesting comment here before I get to my final question. Interesting comment from Cognitive Discord. He says, can't wait for Dr. Boa's book on our very own GM Kenny Solomon. So that's what one of the viewers want. We'll have to wait and see if anything like that happens in the future. So yeah. Cool. Those are the comments, and then from my side, my final question. Maybe you touched on it already, but I can add something. So with all these books and what you've been telling us, you're going through books. What are you currently going through? If it's one or a couple, or you can mention one if you feel like it. And if you have already and on top of that, you can maybe also just add what is maybe a book that you are eyeing or viewing to get in the near future.
Yeah, no, in fact, Calvin, there's so many books that I'm hoping to visit London or Europe or the Olympiad or one of that in the near future. And then hopefully I will be able to ask my wife that I can take my credit card with me, and really purchase some of those books there. But no, there's been a number of books. I, for instance, am looking forward to purchasing the Life and Games of Sultan Khan that Daniel King wrote about two gentlemen who went as a laborer to Britain and then won the British Championship 3 times. So that would be a very interesting book for me to read from a chess perspective as well as a historical perspective as well. Then some of the recent books that have come out on the King's Indian from Kotavi and Noyes and others, that is also books that I'm looking forward to purchasing. It came out in a series. And then one of the things that has received recent publicity has in fact been the history of the Soviet championships. And the history of the Soviet championships are fantastic. And now new information has come to light because the archives in Russia has opened. You may know, Calvin and viewers, that archives are sometimes sealed for 50 years and 70 years and so forth. Now, in this period, that 50 and 70 years have ended in Russia. So some of the information that now comes into the Soviet chess books and what the state did in those years to promote chess can come now to the fore. So I'm looking forward to purchasing some of those Soviet chess history books because the Soviet, in my view, the Soviet impact on chess has been worldwide. And one can see that through some of the countries in Africa that have strong grandmasters, and you don't understand why until you understand the social politics that came. So that is the books that I'm angling to purchase. And of course, Calvin, in Germany recently, they published a collection on Lasker. Now, Lasker is a little known world champion that is not studied a lot. Now, John Nunn wrote about Lasker's, he wrote a whole book on Lasker's middle game technique. But what is important is that the Germans have released this 3-series books on Lasker. It's over 600 pages and it's in A4 size, hard copy, and they released it in 3 volumes. So I'm hoping to get that Lasker books for me. And then there's also a book on Amos Byrne. Now, you know, we always, when we look at these games played by Marshall or played by Capablanca, then you don't think about the guy that was the victim of the brilliancy. You know, you don't think about Dr. Milan Vidmar, who was a professor. You know, you don't think about that guy, Amos Byrne, or you don't think about Sir George Thomas, that was a British millionaire. You don't think, you just see Capablanca, you know, messing the guy. But the point that I'm trying to make is that those lesser known players can also teach us. And that is also important. So I'm looking to get, there's a great book on Amos Byrne. So I'm hoping to get that. So hopefully if I get to London and other places, I'm going to pick up on those ones. Calvin, what I'm presently going through, I've got the Carlson book that I'm now just, I've sat down and I'm going through it. And I've got my world's greatest chess games. And last month I finished Bobby Fischer Rediscovered. It was a 2020 book published by Saltus. And then Saltus, in fact, many of Grandmaster Andy Saltus' books is available at Batsford. And then there's also a series of books written by a Swedish master that is the top 300 positions that you need to know, 300 most instructive positions. So he is now classified in modern terms. Some of the things he's removed some of the older positions that was now old stuff, and he's brought them in with his computer analysis. So some of those ones are what I'm going through, because you don't need to, like a book where that says 300 instructional positions, you don't need to go through all at once. You can go through it over a period of 2 years or 18 months, and just to get a feel for that. So those are some of the books that I'm looking to go through, but I take my time. I don't race through them like I used to do in the past, because there's no need to, but also just for the enjoyment of it. So quite a few books. And of course, I mean, I haven't gone through all my books that I bought. So there's always, let's put it this way, sufficient books to keep me busy. And even when Queen's Gambit came out, my wife Denise and I, she and I realized, but hang on, we do have a Queen's Gambit in the library. And I realized that I've got an old version of Queen's Gambit. So nice. Before we watch the TV series, we actually both read the book first, so that we don't watch the series and then read the book. We actually read the book first and then the TV series. Nice. So I've got quite a few of those ones. But yes, Calvin, I think Carlson, 60 Memorable Games. Hopefully I can inform you next month when I'm done with it, and even tell Kenny Wellenberg there when I've concluded it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Leonard, for these answers. Even in the chat, the guys are inspired over here. They saying thanks for the answers and so on. One last question here from Early B. Early B says he's got tons of books at home, but only one basic one on chess. This episode has really inspired me to start my own collection of chess books. Where is the best place to source books from? So, what is your number one place to actually source the books from? And yeah.
So a couple of things in. So the first one is in Cape Town. You've got Clark's bookstore in Long Street. They sometimes get some new books in. So sometimes if you do have time, pop in by Clark's bookstore. On the second level, the chess books are there. You can just ask the lady or the gentleman that works in front. But they've some nice modern chess books. And if you just take your time between rounds and a cup of coffee, you'll actually find some rare books there, because they sometimes have that. And then of course you got to, and then even the London Chess Centre will have £5 books, £10 books that don't go out of fashion. Some of the books just didn't have great sales, and they will then sell it. But the latest books would be about £20 and €20, so that could be expensive. So I normally wait a little while, and then of course, if I ever do travel again overseas, then at the Olympiads and also in bookstores in Europe. So of course you can order them and they can send it to you, but the postage may be a killer, and then you sometimes have to pay in also on that one. So it all depends. And obviously if you've got a friend that can bring some books for you, maybe Calvin, like in Germany, you got one or two friends, you can ask those guys to bring. But I think generally speaking, use the websites where you genuinely want a book, but where you see books on the South African market, do take it. And exclusive books also has chess books. So any of the exclusive books, whether it be at Tiger Valley or the Waterfront or others, I've found that they actually, whenever I pop in, which is about once every 2 months, then they would have a chess book there, and I would snap it up as well. So those would be some of the places in Cape Town and South Africa, Calvin, that I know of.
Okay, fantastic. You guys, you've got enough options there. And yeah, thanks for all the advice, Dr. Boa. Yeah, the Olympiad one is always, I always snatch a few books at the Olympiad, even though I'm not a huge collector. But at the Olympiad is, yeah, that's a given. You have to take a few home from that side. But yeah, I think that's all from my side. Anything? Oh, maybe one last final question, Doctor. Well, we've done this many a times, but if you want to get a hold of a reflections book, you've got 4 out, I think. So if you want to get hold, if the viewers want to get hold, how do they? Or if they still haven't got a copy, how do they get hold of one?
Sure. So, Calvin, I've got a very simple Gmail account. It's just london.boa@gmail.com. They can literally just send me something in my inbox, and my cell number is also well known. So you can WhatsApp me or just send me london.boa@gmail.com. And we still have a number of copies of the books here. Some great books, because, of course, the reflection books that I have has got a lot of South African games in. And in fact, I'm busy now, Calvin. I can tell the readers with book 5, which is a continuation of 2003 to 2019. And I can tell Mr. Eigap that I even have some games from the Windhoek Optics tournament of 2003, which I won there in Namibia. And Charles was the only person who defeated me in that tournament. We played 2 games, and it was 1-1 in our match, our mini match. But I took home the 4,000 rand first prize there from the Windhoek Optics tournament. But so I'm busy working on that one. And then, of course, the volume 1 and volume 3 has got, and volume 4 has got many hundreds of games of South African chess players. So you may use it to prepare for your opponents. You may use it to enjoy as well, and just to see the stories and and the results of tournaments is also captured in those reflection books. So certainly great to have, and the average cost is about 250 Rand. So many players have bought them and enjoyed them. So please do contact me if you are interested in any of the books.
Fantastic. Okay, so yeah, this was a lovely in between show. Yeah, I would say for Reflections season 4. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I said, we could go on and on and on, but yeah, that's I think all from my side. Do we know who we are continuing with next week, Dr. Mo?
Yeah, yes, we're continuing with a gentleman by the name of Mr. Victor Strugo. And Mr. Strugo is originally from Zimbabwe. He writes now for the Argus column after the late Nick Barnett passed away. And Victor was instrumental in taking the first Zimbabwean team to the 1980 Malta Olympiad. And he's going to come tell us a bit about chess in Zimbabwe and in Southern Africa, as it was known at that stage, Southern Rhodesia and all of that. So, Mr. Strugo, we're looking forward to him chatting with us. And yes, and we've got some great guests also following Mr. Strugo. But for next week, he has confirmed 7 o'clock, Mr. Victor Strugo.
Fantastic. So yeah, that's good to hear. Exciting stuff coming still, and yeah, I think just want to thank everybody in the chat for throwing in the questions, for tuning in. Any final words from your side, Dr. Bob?
No, thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in and to the Reflection Show. I mean, it's unbelievable. We're in season 4. And this is episode 3, and we still have about 9 or 10 episodes still to go. So thank you, everybody, for your support, and looking forward to seeing you guys at the next tournament or 2. Thanks, Calvin, and thanks, viewers.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dr. Bow, and thanks, of course, for showing us your lovely library over there. So to everyone out there, enjoy the rest of the evening, and we'll see you next week, Tuesday, same time. Enjoy.
Thanks, Calvin. Thanks, everyone. Bye.